From the dawn of creation to the final messenger, every prophet carried the same mission: to guide humanity back to the one who made them. This is the story of that mission, told in one epic journey from Adam to Muhammad. You're about to witness the trials, the triumphs, and the truth that has echoed across centuries. Before we begin, make sure you like this video, subscribe for more, and tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Let's see how far this story reaches. In the beginning there was nothing but the command of Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Then with His word be, the heavens and the earth came into existence. They were not born of chance, but crafted with perfect balance. Every star set in its place, and every grain of sand counted. Among this creation, Allah prepared the earth for a new being, one who would walk upon it, tend to it, and be entrusted with guidance. The angels, beings of light who never disobeyed, heard the command of their Lord. Allah told them He would create a vicegerent on earth. The angels, in their purity, asked, "Will you place in it one who will cause corruption and shed blood, while we glorify you and sanctify you?" Allah replied, "I know that which you do not know." From the clay of the earth, Allah shaped the form of man. It was not random dust, but chosen soil from different parts of the world, rich and poor, hard and soft, red and brown and black. For the children of this new creation would inherit all the colors and natures of that soil. When the form was complete, Allah breathed into it from His Spirit, and the first human, Adam, came to life. His eyes opened to the light of a new existence. He saw the vast gardens, heard the rush of water, and felt the warmth of life in his veins. He could speak, think, and remember. Allah taught Adam the names of all things, knowledge the angels had not been given. Then Allah gathered the angels and presented these things before them. "Tell me the names of these, if you are truthful." The angels admitted their limitation. "Glory be to you, we have no knowledge except what you have taught us." Adam was asked to tell them the names, and he did so. The angels realized the wisdom in Allah's choice. Then came a command that would echo through all of time. Allah ordered the angels to bow to Adam in respect for the one Allah had honored. Every angel bowed except Iblis. He was not an angel by creation, but a jinn who had lived among them for his devotion. Pride flared in his heart. "I am better than him. You created me from fire and created him from clay." His arrogance sealed his fate. Allah expelled him from His mercy, but Iblis begged for respite until the day of judgment. Allah granted it, and Iblis vowed to mislead Adam and all his descendants from the straight path. Adam was placed in paradise, a place of unimaginable beauty, with rivers flowing beneath, trees heavy with fruit, and no pain or hardship. Allah created from Adam's rib his companion Hawa, so they would live together in peace. They were told, "Eat from anywhere you wish, but do not approach this one tree, lest you be among the wrongdoers." It was a simple command, yet Iblis waited, patient and cunning. He whispered to them both, swearing by Allah that he was a sincere advisor, telling them the tree would give them eternal life or make them angels. The thought lingered in their hearts until they approached the forbidden tree. The moment they tasted its fruit, their innocence was stripped away. They felt their nakedness and rushed to cover themselves with leaves. Allah called to them, "Did I not forbid you from that tree and tell you that Iblis is your clear enemy?" Adam and Hawa were filled with regret. They said, "Our Lord, we have wronged ourselves, and if you do not forgive us and have mercy upon us, we will surely be among the losers." Allah forgave them, for He is the most merciful. But the test had changed. They were sent down to the earth to live, to work, and to strive. For you on earth will be a dwelling place and provision for a time. There you will live, there you will die, and from it you will be brought forth. On earth, Adam learned to build shelter, to sow seeds, to gather food. He was taught how to live and guided by revelation. His children were born in pairs, each a boy and a girl, destined to marry outside their twin pair. But jealousy entered the heart of one of his sons, Habil, when his sister was promised to his brother Habil. Habil was righteous and offered the best of his flock to Allah, while Qabil gave only what he did not care for. Their offerings were to be a sign of their sincerity. Allah accepted from Habil, but not from Qabil. Qabil's anger burned. One day, in a field, rage overcame him, and he struck his brother, killing him. It was the first blood spilled on earth. Qabil did not know what to do with his brother's body until Allah sent a crow scratching the ground to show him how to bury it. He buried Habil in the earth, his heart heavy with the weight of his sin. Adam's heart broke, for he had seen the first sign of what Iblis had sworn to cause among humanity. Yet Adam did not despair. He continued to guide his people, teaching them the worship of the one God and warning them against the whispers of Shaitan. Years passed, generations were born, and Adam's mission was carried forward. The world was still young, the air still fresh, the people still close to their origin, but the seeds of both faith and rebellion had been planted, and the story of prophecy had only begun. After the death of Habil, the shadow of grief lay heavy over Adam's family. Qabil had wandered away, his heart hardened by the weight of his crime. But instead of repentance, he built his life far from his parents and the guidance they carried. In time, his descendants began to drift away from the worship of Allah. They built homes, raised livestock, learned crafts, and created music, but their hearts grew attached to the pleasures of this world. The children of Habil kept closer to the truth, living in simplicity, but the distance between the two lines grew with every generation. As centuries passed, humanity spread across valleys and mountains. People learned to shape tools from stone and metal, to weave cloth, to trade between settlements. They knew of Allah through the stories passed down from Adam, yet the whispers of Shaitan reached their ears as he tempted them to forget. First came distraction, then pride, then the urge to elevate the pious among them beyond their rightful place. When righteous men and women died, the people felt their absence deeply. Shaitan came to them in the guise of comfort, telling them to carve images of these people so they would be remembered and inspire others to be good. At first, the images were nothing more than markers of memory, but as generations came and went, the meaning was forgotten. The images became objects of reverence, then of worship. The worship of idols had entered the world, and the light of pure Tawheed was dimmed among many. But Allah did not leave humanity without guidance. From among the people, He chose a man named Nuh, a descendant of Adam through the line of Shith. Nuh was upright, truthful, and patient. He saw the corruption of his people and their devotion to lifeless idols. He spoke to them gently at first, reminding them that these carved stones could neither help nor harm. He warned them that Shaitan had deceived their ancestors, and he called them back to worship the one who created the heavens and the earth. The people listened politely at first, but as days turned into years, their patience wore thin. They mocked Nuh, calling him a fool, accusing him of seeking status. Nuh was not discouraged. He called them openly in the markets, and he called them privately in their homes. He spoke to the elders, to the youth, to the poor and the rich. His call was clear and constant. Worship Allah alone, obey His commands, and you will find mercy. Yet the chiefs of the people hardened their hearts. They said, "You are but a man like us. If Allah had willed, He would have sent angels. We see only the poorest following you, and we think they are fools." For 950 years, Nu persisted. Every rejection, every insult, every stone thrown his way was met with more patience. But the people's arrogance only grew. They held tightly to their idols, named after the pious of old: Wad, Suwa, Yahuth, Yauk, and Nazar. They believed these idols could intercede for them, though they were deaf and blind. Eventually, Nu turned to Allah with a plea that would change the fate of the earth. He said, "My Lord, they have disobeyed me and followed those whose wealth and children only increase them in loss. Do not leave upon the earth any from among the disbelievers, for if you leave them, they will mislead your servants and will beget none but wicked disbelievers." Allah answered his prophet and gave him a command unlike any before. Nu was to build an ark, a massive vessel that would carry the believers and pairs of every animal. This was to be built far from any sea, on dry land where ships had never sailed. Nu obeyed without hesitation. Day after day he worked, cutting timber, shaping planks, sealing the frame with tar. His followers helped him, though they were few. The rest of the people laughed and mocked. "Oh, Nu, have you become a carpenter now? Will you sail your ship on the sand?" Nu warned them that a flood was coming, a punishment for their defiance, but they only laughed louder. When the ark was complete, Allah gave a sign. From the oven of Nu's home water began to gush forth, a symbol that the flood had begun. Nu was told to gather his family and the believers, along with a male and female of every creature. The sky darkened, clouds swelled, and rain began to pour like it had never poured before. The earth itself gushed water from every crack and spring. Rivers overflowed, valleys filled, and the waters rose higher and higher until even the tallest trees were submerged. The people who had mocked now ran to the mountains, but the waves followed them. Among those outside the ark was Nu's own son, who had chosen disbelief. Nu called to him, "O my son, come aboard with us and do not be with the disbelievers." But his son refused, saying he would find refuge on a mountain. Nu replied, "There is no protector today from the command of Allah except for whom he has mercy." A towering wave came between them, and his son was gone. Nu's heart ached, but he submitted to the will of his Lord. For months, the ark sailed over what had once been the earth, now a boundless ocean. Inside was safety, though outside was destruction. At last, the rain ceased, the clouds parted, and the water began to recede. The ark came to rest upon Mount Judy. The believers stepped out onto a cleansed earth, the air fresh, the ground soft beneath their feet. Nu gave thanks to Allah for saving them and establishing a new beginning. He was told that this was a sign for those who reflect, yet many generations later people would forget again. Nu lived to guide his people after the flood, teaching them to build their lives on worship and justice. But he knew the pattern that had begun with Adam's children would return. Some hearts would remain firm upon the truth, while others would follow their desires and the whispers of Shaitan. This cycle would call for new messengers, each sent to their people, each carrying the same message of Tawheed. And so the mission that began with Adam continued, flowing through time like a river, unbroken, until it would one day reach its final messenger. Generations after Nu, the survivors of the flood had spread across the earth. They built homes and farmlands and established tribes. At first, they held fast to the guidance passed down, but as time passed, the memories faded. The purity of worship weakened, and pride began to grow again in the hearts of men. Some among them started to boast of their strength and wealth, forgetting that all blessings come from Allah. Others returned to carving idols, giving them names, and seeking their help as if the Creator had no power over their affairs. Shaitan's whispers had found their way back into the world. From among these people arose the tribe of Ad. They were known for their size and strength, towering above other men, with voices that could be heard far across the valleys. They built massive structures, palaces of stone, and fortified dwellings in the region of Al-Akaf. They saw themselves as invincible, masters of their land, and they mocked the idea that anyone could challenge them. It was to this arrogant people that Allah sent His prophet Hud. Hud was one of their own, a man known for his honesty and wisdom, chosen to call them back to the worship of the one God. Hud stood before his people and said, "O my people, worship Allah. You have no God but Him. Will you not then fear Him?" He reminded them of the blessings they had been given: strength in their bodies, fertile lands, rain from the sky, and the ability to build as no other people could. But instead of gratitude, they had turned to idols. Hud warned them that these idols could not bring rain nor protect them from harm, that their arrogance would lead only to destruction. The chiefs of Ad scoffed at his words. They accused him of being foolish, of lying, of seeking leadership over them. They said, "It is the same to us whether you preach or do not preach. This is nothing but the habit of the former people, and we will not be punished." Hud was patient. He spoke to them day after day, sometimes in public gatherings, sometimes to individuals in private, urging them to repent before the mercy of Allah was withdrawn. But the more he called them, the more stubborn they became. Then the rain stopped. The skies over Al-Akaf turned dry and barren. The once green fields became cracked and dusty. Hud told them, "Seek forgiveness from your Lord and turn to Him in repentance. He will send rain from the sky in abundance and increase you in strength upon your strength." But they laughed and said it was only a passing season, that their gods would soon restore the rain. The drought grew worse. The animals grew thin, the wells dried, and the air filled with a restless heat. One day, a cloud appeared on the horizon, dark and heavy. The people of Ad rejoiced, believing it was the return of rain. They ran into the streets and lifted their hands, welcoming what they thought was mercy. But Hud's face was solemn. He knew what was coming. This was not a cloud of blessing, but a wind of destruction sent by the command of Allah. The wind came with a force they had never felt. It howled through the valleys, tearing roofs from houses, uprooting trees, and lifting men into the air like dry leaves. For 7 nights and 8 days it raged without pause. The people of Ad, once so proud of their strength, were powerless before it. Their bodies were thrown lifeless across the land, as if they had never lived there at all. When the wind finally ceased, silence filled the valley. The mighty tribe of Ad was gone, their palaces empty, their gardens turned to desert. Hud and the believers who had followed him were safe, for Allah does not destroy those who obey Him. In time, new people came to settle the lands beyond. Among them were the tribe of Thamud, who made their homes in the rocky mountains of Al-Hijr. They carved dwellings straight into the cliffs, with doors and columns of stone, safe from wind and sun. They had wealth, skill, and security, but like Ad before them, they became arrogant and turned to worship idols. Allah sent to them the prophet Salih, a man from among them, known for his goodness and fairness. Salih said to his people, "O my people, worship Allah. You have no God but Him. He brought you forth from the earth and settled you in it. So seek His forgiveness and repent to Him." They replied with suspicion, saying they had hoped he would be their leader, but now he spoke against their gods. They demanded a sign to prove his truthfulness. Salih told them to choose what sign they wished. They pointed to a massive rock and said they wanted a living camel to come forth from it, a she-camel, full-grown and pregnant. By the will of Allah, the rock split, and from it emerged the she-camel exactly as they had described. It was a clear miracle, yet Salih warned them it was a test. He told them the camel had a right to drink from the water on certain days, and on those days no one was to prevent her or harm her. On other days the water would be theirs. The people agreed. but their hearts were restless. The chiefs feared the miracle would draw people to Salih's call, so they plotted against the camel. One day, as she approached the water, they ambushed her. They struck her down and killed her, ignoring Salih's warning that if they harmed her, a great punishment would come. When news spread, Salih turned to them and said, "Enjoy yourselves in your homes for 3 days. That is a promise that will not be denied." On the first day their faces turned yellow, on the second red, and on the third black. In the morning of the fourth day a terrible cry came from the sky, followed by a violent earthquake. The people of Thamud fell dead where they stood, their stone homes echoing with silence. The ruins of Ad and Thamud stood as a warning to those who came after, reminders of what happens when strength and skill are used in defiance of the one who gave them. Yet as history would show, many would pass by these ruins and take no lesson. The mission of the prophets continued, for humanity's heart could be stubborn, but the mercy of Allah sent guidance again and again to every nation, preparing the way for the greater stories yet to come. After the destruction of Thamud, generations rose and fell. Tribes spread across the lands, some settling by rivers, others in the highlands, each with their own ways of life. The lessons of those who came before still lingered in stories, but stories alone could not hold a stubborn heart. In the valleys of Mesopotamia, a people thrived, rich in crops and trade. They built temples, not for the worship of Allah, but for the sun, moon, and stars. Their nights were filled with chants to the sky, their days with offerings to lifeless idols. Among them was a young man named Ibrahim, born into a family devoted to these idols. His father carved them with his own hands, selling them in the market as protectors and bringers of fortune. From an early age, Ibrahim questioned what he saw. He watched people bow to statues, yet those statues could not move or speak. He saw his father shaping an idol from clay, only to set it on a shelf for worship. One day he asked, "Father, why do you worship what you carve with your own hands, when Allah created you and what you make?" His father grew angry and warned him not to insult their gods. But Ibrahim's mind and heart were awake. At night he looked to the heavens. He saw a star and thought of its beauty, but when it set, he said, "I do not love those that disappear." He saw the moon rise, larger and brighter, but when it too faded, he knew it could not be his Lord. Then the sun rose, filling the sky with light, and yet by evening it sank below the horizon. Ibrahim said, "O my people, I am free from what you associate with Allah. I turn my face to Him who created the heavens and the earth, and I am not of those who worship others alongside Him." His people would not listen. They clung to their idols, and the chiefs feared his words would spread. Ibrahim decided to show them the truth. One day, when the town had gone to a festival, he entered the temple where the idols stood in rows. He took an axe and smashed the smaller ones to pieces, leaving the largest untouched. He placed the axe on his shoulder and left. When the people returned, they were shocked. "Who has done this to our gods?" they demanded. Some remembered Ibrahim's words and brought him before them. They asked if he had done it. He replied, "The largest one did it. Ask them if they can speak." The people were silenced for a moment, knowing the idols could not answer, but their pride blinded them. The chiefs ordered Ibrahim to be burned alive. They built a massive fire, so hot that birds could not fly above it. They placed Ibrahim into a great catapult and hurled him into the flames. But Allah said to the fire, "Be coolness and safety for Ibrahim," and the fire obeyed. He emerged unharmed, a sign to all that Allah is the protector of His servants. Still, the majority did not believe, but Ibrahim's mission was not over. He traveled to other lands, calling people to the worship of Allah. In Egypt, he married Sarah, and later he was blessed with Hajar, who bore him a son, Ismail. By Allah's command, Ibrahim took Hajar and the infant to the barren valley of Makkah. leaving them with a small amount of food and water. When Hajar asked why he was leaving, and he did not answer, she said, "Has Allah commanded you to do this?" He nodded, and she said, "Then he will not abandon us." The water soon ran out, and Ismail cried from thirst. Hajar ran between the hills of Safa and Marwa 7 times, searching for help. Then Allah caused water to spring from beneath the baby's feet, the well of Zamzam. Travelers began to settle in the valley, and Makkah became a place of life. Years later, Ibrahim returned and, with Ismail now grown, was commanded to build the Kaaba as the house of Allah on earth. Together they raised its walls, praying, "Our Lord, accept this from us, and make us submissive to you, and from our descendants a community submissive to you." Ibrahim's trials were many. One night he saw in a dream that he was sacrificing his son. Dreams of prophets are revelation, so he told Ismail. The son replied, "Do as you are commanded. You will find me patient if Allah wills." Ibrahim laid him down, but before the blade could touch him, Allah replaced him with a ram, sparing Ismail and confirming Ibrahim's obedience. This sacrifice became a sign for future generations, remembered every year during the days of Eid. Ibrahim's life was a chain of tests, each one greater than the last, yet each met with complete trust in Allah. Through him, the call of Tawheed spread far, and from his descendants would come many prophets, each carrying the same message. Among these was his son Ishaq, who would father Yaqub, and from Yaqub's sons would come the story of Yusuf, whose journey would take the mission into the heart of Egypt. Yusuf was beloved by his father, but envied by his brothers. One night he told Yaqub of a dream in which 11 stars, the sun and the moon, prostrated to him. Yaqub knew it was a sign of future honor, but warned Yusuf not to share it with his brothers. Their jealousy grew until they plotted to remove him. They convinced their father to let him join them in the fields, then threw him into a deep well. They returned with a shirt stained in false blood, claiming a wolf had taken him. A caravan passing by found Yusuf and sold him into slavery in Egypt, where he was bought by a nobleman. As Yusuf grew, his beauty and character were unmatched. The nobleman's wife tried to tempt him, but he refused, seeking refuge in Allah. When she accused him falsely, he was imprisoned despite his innocence. In prison, Yusuf called others to the worship of Allah, interpreting dreams by his permission. One of these dreams belonged to the king, who summoned Yusuf and, after hearing the truth, freed him and made him a trusted minister. Years later, famine struck the land, driving Yusuf's brothers to Egypt for food. They did not recognize him at first, but through a series of tests he revealed himself. Overcome with shame, they sought his forgiveness, and he welcomed them, saying, "No blame will there be upon you today. Allah will forgive you, and He is the most merciful." He brought his family to Egypt, and the dream of his youth came true as his parents and brothers bowed to him in respect, fulfilling the vision Allah had shown him. From Ibrahim to Yusuf, the thread of the mission remained unbroken: to call humanity to the worship of the one who created them, to live with justice, to trust in Allah in times of trial. Yet the nations would again falter, and the next call would come through a prophet who would lead his people out of the chains of tyranny. The descendants of Yaqub multiplied in Egypt, living there for generations. At first they were treated well, but as time passed, new rulers rose who did not remember the honor once given to Yusuf. The children of Israel became a people enslaved, forced into harsh labor under the command of Pharaoh. Their lives were spent building monuments and toiling in fields, their freedom stripped away. Yet even in chains they held to the memory of Allah's promise that a deliverer would come. In the time of one such Pharaoh, a dream came to him that a child from the Israelites would be the cause of his downfall. Fear gripped his heart, and he ordered every newborn boy among them to be killed. Mothers wept, fathers hid their sons, and the soldiers of Pharaoh searched every home. It was in this time that Musa was born. His mother, guided by inspiration from Allah, placed him in a small basket and set him afloat on the river, her heart trembling, yet trusting in her Lord. The river carried the child to none other than the palace of Pharaoh, where his wife, Asiya, found him. She was moved by the sight of the baby and said to Pharaoh, "He will be a comfort to me and to you. Do not kill him. Perhaps he may benefit us, or we may adopt him as a son." Musa grew up in the palace, yet Allah returned him to his own mother as a nurse, fulfilling his promise. In his youth, Musa was strong and just, defending the weak and despising oppression. One day, while walking in the city, he saw a man from his people in conflict with an Egyptian. Musa struck the Egyptian to defend his brother, but the blow killed the man. Fearful, Musa fled Egypt and traveled to Madian, where he found safety. There he helped the daughters of a righteous man draw water for their flock, and in time he married one of them, living in peace for several years. One day, while traveling with his family, Musa saw a fire in the distance. He approached and found himself before a scene beyond imagination. From a tree that burned without being consumed came a voice, "O Musa, indeed I am Allah, Lord of the worlds." Musa was commanded to throw down his staff, and it became a living serpent. He was told to place his hand inside his cloak, and it emerged shining with a radiant light. Allah commanded him to go to Pharaoh and call him to worship the one true God. Musa, feeling his speech was not fluent, asked that his brother Harun be sent with him to assist. Allah granted this and promised them his support. Musa and Harun entered Pharaoh's court and spoke the truth. "Send with us the children of Israel and do not torment them. We have come to you with a sign from your Lord." Pharaoh's pride flared. He accused Musa of sorcery and demanded a contest between him and the magicians of Egypt. On the appointed day, the magicians threw down their ropes and staffs, which seemed to slither like snakes through illusion. Musa cast down his staff by Allah's command, and it swallowed all their false magic. The magicians fell in prostration, declaring their belief in the Lord of Musa and Harun. Pharaoh raged and ordered their punishment, but the truth had been made clear. Despite many signs, the staff, the shining hand, years of drought, plagues of locusts, lice, frogs, and blood, Pharaoh and his chiefs remained arrogant. Finally, Allah commanded Musa to lead his people out of Egypt by night. They set out, but Pharaoh's army pursued them to the edge of the sea. The people panicked, saying, "We are overtaken." Musa replied, "No, indeed, my Lord is with me. He will guide me." Allah commanded him to strike the sea with his staff, and the waters parted, towering like walls on either side, a dry path stretching before them. They crossed safely, but when Pharaoh and his army followed, the sea closed upon them, drowning them all. Pharaoh, in his final moments, declared belief, but it was too late. His body was preserved as a sign for future generations. Musa led his people into the desert, where they were tested. Allah gave them manna and quails for food, water from a struck rock, and shade from clouds above. Yet some among them complained and turned to disobedience. When Musa went to Mount Sinai to receive the commandments, they fell into idol worship, fashioning a golden calf. Musa returned in anger, rebuking them for forgetting their Lord so quickly. They repented, and Allah forgave, but the pattern of forgetfulness and guidance continued. Among the people were the stubborn and the faithful. Those who followed the truth were led into the promised land, but many fell to pride and sin, and over generations the worship of Allah was mixed with the ways of the corrupt. In time, kings rose among them, some righteous and others tyrants. Allah sent more prophets to keep them on the path, each bearing the same call: worship Allah alone, live with justice, remember the covenant. From among these prophets came Dawood, a young shepherd who defeated the giant Goliath, through his faith and courage. Allah made him king and gave him wisdom, strength, and a voice so beautiful that even the birds and mountains would join him in praise. He ruled with justice, judging between people with fairness, and Allah granted him the Psalms as guidance. After him came his son Sulaiman, blessed with knowledge, wealth, and the power to command the wind, the jinn, and the animals. His reign was marked by prosperity and awe, yet he too called his people to humility before Allah, knowing that all power is a trust, not a possession. But after their time, the unity of the people weakened again. Rivalry, greed, and neglect of the commandments spread. Prophets were rejected, some even killed, and the mission that had begun with Adam continued its long journey, always facing resistance, yet always renewed by Allah's mercy. Through every age, the call was the same, carried on by men chosen not for their wealth or lineage, but for their sincerity, patience, and unwavering trust in their Lord. And though the hearts of many would turn away, the promise remained that the final messenger would come to restore the truth in full. Generations after the reign of Suleiman, the unity of the people of Israel had fractured, kingdoms split, power shifted, and the covenant was neglected. Some rulers led with justice, but many fell to greed and oppression. Prophets were sent, each calling their people back to the worship of Allah, yet many were rejected, mocked, or harmed. The people were warned that if they broke their covenant, trials would descend upon them, and so it happened. Foreign powers invaded, taking captives, destroying their lands, and scattering them. Still, the mercy of Allah continued, and He sent among them a prophet whose life would be marked by miracles and tests unlike any before. In the town of Nazareth lived Maryam, a young woman devoted to worship in the sanctuary under the care of the prophet Zachariah. She was known for her purity and piety, and Allah had chosen her above the women of her time. One day, as she withdrew to a place in the east, an angel appeared before her in the form of a man. She feared and sought refuge in Allah, but the angel said, "I am only a messenger of your Lord to grant you a pure son." She asked how she could have a son when no man had touched her. The angel replied, "So it will be. Your Lord says, 'It is easy for me.'" Maryam conceived by the command of Allah, a miracle without a father, and she withdrew to a distant place. The pains of childbirth drove her to the trunk of a palm tree, where in her anguish she cried out. A voice called from below, telling her not to grieve, that a stream flowed at her feet and fresh dates hung above her. She ate, drank, and regained strength. With the infant in her arms, she returned to her people, who accused her of wrongdoing. She pointed to the child, and they scoffed, asking how they could speak to one in the cradle. Then, by Allah's will, the infant spoke, saying, "I am indeed the servant of Allah. He has given me the scripture and made me a prophet. He has made me blessed wherever I am, and enjoined upon me prayer and charity as long as I live, and made me dutiful to my mother. Peace was on me the day I was born, the day I die, and the day I will be raised to life." This child was Isa, son of Maryam, a sign to the world and a mercy from Allah. As he grew, he called the people to worship Allah alone, confirming the Torah and bringing the gospel as guidance and light. He healed the blind and the leper, gave life to the dead by Allah's permission, and told people what they had stored in their homes. These signs were clear, yet the chiefs of his people plotted against him, fearing the loss of their power and influence. Isa gathered disciples who believed in him and supported his mission. He taught them compassion, justice, and humility, and reminded them that his miracles were by the permission of Allah, not by his own power. He spoke of the coming of a final messenger after him, whose name would be Ahmad. But the leaders intensified their schemes, seeking to have him killed. They went to the ruler and accused him of treason, stirring fear and anger against Isa. Soldiers were sent to seize him, but Allah had decreed otherwise. In a moment known only to Allah, Isa was raised up, protected from their plot. It was made to appear to his enemies that they had captured and crucified him, but they had not. They killed not the Messiah, nor crucified him, but it was made to seem so to them. Those who differed over this were full of doubt, for they had no certain knowledge, only conjecture. Isa was lifted, body and soul, and remains alive until his return in the last days, when he will descend again to establish justice and truth. After Isa's departure, his followers faced persecution. Some clung to his true message, but others altered it, mixing truth with falsehood, elevating Isa beyond his rightful place as a prophet into something he never claimed. Idolatry returned in new forms, and the oneness of Allah was obscured. Yet even in the darkest times, Allah preserved a line of those who held to his truth, awaiting the final messenger who would bring the complete guidance for all humanity. Across the deserts of Arabia, tribes lived in scattered settlements, each with its own customs, alliances, and rivalries. They were proud of their lineage, their poetry, and their code of honor, yet their land was steeped in idol worship. The Kaaba, built by Ibrahim and Ismail for the worship of Allah alone, had been filled with hundreds of idols. Blood feuds lasted for generations, and the weak were often oppressed by the strong. There were few who still followed the pure way of Ibrahim, known as the Hunafa, and they awaited a prophet foretold in ancient scriptures. It was into this world that Muhammad, son of Abdullah, would be born in Makkah from the noble tribe of Quraysh. His father died before his birth, and his mother when he was only 6. He was raised by his grandfather Abdul Muttalib and later by his uncle Abu Talib. Known for his honesty and trustworthiness, he was given the title Al-Amin, the Faithful. He worked as a shepherd in his youth and later as a merchant, gaining a reputation for fairness and integrity. At the age of 25, he married Khadija, a noble and wise woman who had hired him for trade and was impressed by his character. They lived a life of respect and mutual support. Yet Muhammad was deeply troubled by the state of his people, their idol worship, injustice, and moral decay. He often withdrew to the cave of Hira in the mountains, spending nights in reflection and prayer, seeking truth. One night in the month of Ramadan, as he sat in the cave, the angel Jibril appeared to him with a command, "Read." Muhammad, unlettered, replied that he could not read. The command came again and again until the angel said, "Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man what he did not know." Trembling, Muhammad returned home to Khadija, who comforted him and took him to her cousin Waraka, a learned man in the scriptures. Waraka confirmed that this was the same angel who had come to Musa and foretold that Muhammad would be driven out by his people. The mission had begun, one that would complete the chain from Adam to Muhammad, carrying the same truth that all the prophets had brought. It would face resistance, hardship, and sacrifice, but it would not be stopped, for it was the will of Allah to bring light to the entire world. When the revelation began, it came with pauses that left Muhammad longing for more, and when it came again, it carried words that shook the hearts of those who heard them. He was told to rise and warn, to purify himself, and to shun idolatry. At first he called quietly, beginning with those closest to him. Khadija believed without hesitation. His young cousin Ali accepted, as did his loyal friend Abu Bakr, who in turn invited others. Slowly the circle grew, bound by the worship of one God and the rejection of all others. For 3 years the call remained private, a quiet flame in the darkness. But then Muhammad was commanded to proclaim openly. He climbed the hill of Safa and called the people by name, warning them of a coming day when each soul would stand before its Lord. The chiefs of Quraysh were unsettled. They prided themselves on their control of Makkah and its Kaaba, which brought pilgrims from across Arabia to honor the idols. His message threatened their trade, their authority, and their traditions. They began to mock and oppose him. They called him a poet, a sorcerer, a madman. They tried to bargain, offering him wealth, leadership, even marriage, if he would only stop speaking against their gods. He refused, saying, "If they place the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left, I would not abandon this matter until Allah makes it prevail, or I perish in the attempt." As the number of believers grew, so did the hostility. Slaves who accepted Islam were beaten and tortured. Sumayya, the mother of Ammar, was killed, the first martyr in Islam. Bilal, an Abyssinian slave, was dragged through the streets under the burning sun, yet he called out, "One, one." Abu Bakr used his wealth to free those who were oppressed. The Quraysh pressured Abu Talib to stop protecting his nephew, but though he did not accept Islam, he refused to abandon him. Seeking to break the resolve of the Muslims, the Quraysh imposed a social and economic boycott on Muhammad and his followers. They were forced to live in a narrow valley, cut off from trade and support. Hunger became their constant companion, and the cries of children echoed in the night. This hardship lasted 3 years until some among Quraysh, moved by conscience, brought it to an end. Yet soon after, Muhammad suffered 2 heavy losses: the death of Khadijah, his companion and source of comfort, and Abu Talib, his protector. That year became known as the Year of Sorrow. Grieving, Muhammad traveled to the city of Taif, seeking new allies. Instead, its leaders mocked him and set their slaves to chase him out, pelting him with stones until his feet bled. Sitting under a tree, he prayed, pouring his pain to Allah, declaring that if his Lord was not angry with him, he cared not for any other hardship. That night, Allah sent him comfort beyond imagining. He was taken on the night journey, riding the Buraq from Mecca to Jerusalem, where he led the prophets in prayer. From there, he was taken through the heavens, shown signs of the unseen, and given the command for prayer, which would become the daily link between the believers and their Lord. In the years that followed, the message began to reach beyond Makkah. Delegations from Yathrib, a city to the north, listened to Muhammad and accepted Islam, pledging to support him. Persecution in Makkah grew more intense, and Allah gave permission for the believers to migrate. They slipped away in small groups, leaving behind their homes and possessions. Muhammad stayed until the command came for him to go, escaping a plot by Quraysh to kill him. He and Abu Bakr hid in a cave as their pursuers passed so close that only Allah's protection kept them unseen. From there, they traveled to Yathrib, which became Al-Madinah, the city of the Prophet. In Medina, Muhammad became not only a messenger but a leader, establishing a community bound by faith rather than tribe. The emigrants from Makkah were paired with the helpers of Medina as brothers. A constitution was drawn to secure peace among Muslims, Jews, and other groups, ensuring mutual rights and responsibilities. For the first time, the call to prayer rose over a city, summoning all to worship. The Quraysh, unwilling to let Islam grow, marched with an army to face the Muslims at Badr. Though outnumbered, the believers fought with courage, and Allah granted them victory. This strengthened their resolve, but Quraysh sought revenge. At Uhud, they returned with a larger force. The Muslims were close to victory until some disobeyed the Prophet's orders, leaving their posts. The tide turned, and many were killed, including Hamza, the beloved uncle of the Prophet. It was a bitter day, yet it taught them obedience and patience. Years later, the Quraysh, with allied tribes, marched again in great numbers, seeking to wipe out the Muslims. In Medina, the believers dug a trench around the city, a strategy unknown in Arabia, which held back the enemy. The siege dragged on until a storm scattered their forces, and they withdrew in defeat. This marked the decline of Quraysh's dominance. Soon after, Muhammad set out with the believers to perform Umrah. At Hudaybiyah, they were stopped by Quraysh, and a treaty was signed. Though some companions saw it as unfavorable, it allowed for a period of peace in which Islam spread rapidly. Within 2 years, Quraysh broke the treaty, giving Muhammad cause to march on Mecca with a great army. They entered without bloodshed, and the Prophet went to the Kaaba, cleansing it of idols and declaring, "Truth has come and falsehood has vanished." He forgave his former enemies, showing mercy when he could have sought revenge. Tribes across Arabia embraced Islam, sending delegations to Medina. The message that began in the cave of Hira now reached lands far beyond. Muhammad delivered his farewell sermon at the Hajj, reminding the people of their equality before Allah, the sanctity of life and property, and the completion of the religion. Shortly after, he fell ill. Surrounded by his family and companions, he passed away, his mission fulfilled. From Adam to Muhammad, the message had been the same: worship Allah alone, follow his guidance, live with justice and mercy. The chain of prophets had reached its completion, and the responsibility now lay with the believers to carry the truth to the ends of the earth. After the passing of Muhammad, the believers were overcome with grief. Many could not accept the reality until Abu Bakr stood before them and reminded them, "Whoever worshipped Muhammad, know that Muhammad has died. But whoever worships Allah, know that Allah is ever living and never dies." The words settled in their hearts, bringing them back to the truth. The mission of the Prophet was complete, but the responsibility to carry it forward had just begun. Abu Bakr was chosen as the first leader of the Muslims. His time was marked by challenges as some tribes refused to pay the zakah and others claimed false prophethood. Abu Bakr stood firm, sending armies to uphold the unity of the faith. Under his leadership, the foundations remained strong, and within 2 years he passed the trust to Umar ibn al-Khattab. Umar's leadership saw the expansion of the Muslim world beyond Arabia. Lands once ruled by the Persian Empire and the Byzantines came under the justice of Islam. Cities like Damascus, Jerusalem, and Ctesiphon welcomed the new rule, where taxes were fair and the rights of all were respected. Umar walked the streets at night in disguise, ensuring no one in his care went hungry. His humility was such that he wore patched clothes while commanding an empire. Yet even he could not escape fate, and he was assassinated while leading prayer. Uthman ibn Affan became the third leader. Known for his generosity, he oversaw the compilation of the Quran into a single unified text, preserving it exactly as it had been revealed. Under his rule, the Muslim lands grew even further, but internal tensions began to rise. Discontent was stirred by those who sought power, and unrest spread until rebels entered Medina and killed Uthman in his own home while he read the Quran. His blood stained the pages, a sign of the trials to come. Ali ibn Abi Talib took leadership in a time of deep division. He faced opposition from those who sought revenge for Uthman's death and from others who pursued their own ambitions. Battles broke out between Muslims, a painful test for the young community. Ali strove for justice, but the wounds of fitna ran deep. He too was struck down by assassination, and the unity of the believers was shaken. Despite the turmoil, the light of the mission did not fade. Knowledge was sought and preserved, the Quran and the Sunnah studied and taught. Scholars traveled vast distances to collect the sayings of the Prophet, ensuring that his guidance would remain for generations. Cities like Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba became centers of learning where science, medicine, mathematics, and philosophy thrived under the umbrella of faith. In this golden age, rulers like Umar ibn Abdulaziz revived the spirit of justice, returning wealth to the people and ruling with humility. Trade flourished across continents, connecting lands from West Africa to China. The call to prayer echoed in cities and villages, deserts and mountains, uniting hearts across cultures and languages. Yet history showed again that with prosperity came tests. Some leaders strayed from the example of the prophet, seeking luxury and power. In other times, foreign armies invaded, burning libraries, destroying cities, and killing without mercy. The Crusades brought waves of bloodshed, yet leaders like Salahuddin reclaimed Jerusalem with honor, granting safety to its inhabitants regardless of their faith. The mission was carried forward not only by rulers and armies, but by scholars, traders, and travelers. In the East, Islam reached the islands of Southeast Asia through merchants whose honesty and kindness won hearts. In the West, it entered Spain, where for centuries Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived under shared rule, producing art, architecture, and knowledge that would shape the world. The Mongol invasions crushed many cities, including Baghdad, but from their ranks would rise rulers who embraced Islam and carried its message further. The Ottomans, Mughals, and Safavids each left their mark on the history of the Ummah, building mosques, schools, and hospitals, preserving the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet. Throughout the centuries, despite wars, famines, and trials, the Quran remained unchanged, recited by millions, memorized by children, guiding hearts in every generation. The sayings and actions of the Prophet were studied in gatherings from the deserts of Arabia to the coasts of Africa, from the steppes of Central Asia to the forests of Indonesia. The faith he brought shaped laws, inspired art, and influenced cultures while remaining rooted in the worship of one God. But the mission was never meant to rest in history. Each believer became part of the chain, responsible for living by the truth and passing it on. When Muslims forgot this responsibility, weakness entered their ranks. Colonization divided their lands, foreign powers imposed their laws, and many tried to strip away the identity of the Ummah. Yet even in the darkest times, there were those who held firmly to the Quran and Sunnah, keeping the flame alive. In every age, Allah raised individuals who reminded the people of their purpose. Some revived knowledge, some defended the weak, some traveled to distant lands carrying the message. The mission of the prophets was never only about conquest or power, but about hearts returning to their Creator, about justice, mercy, and truth, standing firm in the face of falsehood. Today, the call still echoes. From the first breath of Adam to the final words of Muhammad, the message has been one: there is no God but Allah. The story is not only a record of the past, but a guide for the present and a trust for the future. The responsibility has passed to all who believe, to live with faith, to act with justice, and to invite others to the truth with wisdom and patience. The chain remains unbroken, stretching from the gardens of paradise where Adam first stood, through the deserts and mountains, across seas and continents, to every heart that bears witness. The mission continues until the final trumpet is blown, and the earth gives up its burdens, and all stand before their Lord to see the truth they had been told from the very beginning. In the centuries that followed the great expansions of Islam, the world changed in ways few could have imagined. New empires rose, borders shifted, and cultures blended. Yet the mission that began with Adam remained the same, carried by believers in different lands and times. In some places, the call to prayer rang out from towering minarets over bustling markets. In others, it was whispered quietly in homes, where the faith was kept alive under the shadow of oppression. There were times when the Ummah stood strong, united under justice, and times when it fractured under division. In lands where rulers upheld the Quran and Sunnah, the people flourished. Knowledge was valued, and scholars were honored more than warriors. Books traveled on caravans across deserts and seas, and the words of the Prophet were preserved with care. In other lands, greed and neglect of the commandments led to decline, and foreign powers gained control, reshaping societies with laws and customs far from the guidance of Allah. In the West, in the lands of Al-Andalus, the light of Islam shone for centuries. Cities like Cordoba and Granada became centers of learning where Muslims, Christians, and Jews worked together in medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. The beauty of the Alhambra reflected the harmony of faith and art, but political rivalry weakened them, and one by one the cities fell to the Christian kingdoms until the last stronghold was lost. The sounds of the Adhan faded, but the legacy remained, influencing Europe for generations. In the East, great powers like the Ottomans carried the banner of Islam across continents. They built mosques so grand that their domes seemed to touch the sky, and they ruled over lands where justice was written into the law. Under leaders like Suleiman the Magnificent, the empire became a place where travelers from distant lands found safety and fairness. Yet time brought challenges, corruption, internal conflict, and the rise of rival powers. The unity that had once been a shield against enemies began to weaken. The Mughals in India created a society where architecture, poetry, and scholarship thrived. The Taj Mahal stood as a symbol of beauty, but beneath the splendor, tensions between faiths simmered. The Safavids in Persia shaped the culture and politics of their region, holding to their understanding of Islam, yet often in rivalry with their neighbors. Despite differences, the thread of the mission was still present, to remind people of their Creator and their accountability before Him. While empires rose and fell, the message traveled in quieter ways. Traders carried it across the Sahara into the heart of Africa. Sailors brought it to the islands of the Indian Ocean and the shores of Southeast Asia. In many places it spread not by armies, but by the honesty and kindness of those who lived it. Entire communities embraced Islam after seeing how a Muslim would treat a neighbor, weigh goods fairly, or keep a promise. But the Ummah was not free from hardship. The Mongol invasions had once burned cities to the ground, killing scholars and scattering communities. Centuries later, colonial powers arrived with ships and armies, carving the Muslim world into pieces, extracting its wealth, and imposing their own systems. In some places, the Adhan was silenced, and the teaching of the Quran was restricted, yet in the hearts of the believers, the light remained, passed from parent to child, teacher to student. Times of oppression often gave rise to those who renewed the faith. Some called people back to the Quran, stripping away innovations and false practices. Others fought to defend the weak and reclaim independence. The mission of the prophets was not only about governance, but about awakening hearts. Even in lands where Muslims were a small minority, the responsibility remained the same: to live in truth, to invite with wisdom, and to be a witness to the message. In recent times, the world has grown more connected. Messages travel across oceans in moments, and people from every nation speak to one another daily. This has brought both opportunity and challenge. For the believer, it is a chance to share the truth widely, to reach places once unreachable. But it is also a time of distraction, where voices calling to falsehood are louder than ever. The test is no longer only in the battlefield or the marketplace, but in the mind and the heart, where choices are made in private. The mission that began with Adam now belongs to every Muslim. It is no longer the task of one prophet in one land, but of millions who follow the final messenger. Each prayer said on time, each act of honesty, each word of kindness becomes part of that mission. The Quran is still recited as it was in the time of the Prophet, its words preserved letter by letter, its guidance unchanged. The Sunnah still explains how to live those words in the rhythm of daily life. The story of the prophets is not just a record of what was, but a reminder of what must be. Adam stood on earth with the first trust. Nuh called his people for centuries. Ibrahim faced fire and exile. Musa stood before Pharaoh. Isa was raised to the heavens. Muhammad brought the final message, enduring hardship until the mission was complete. Now the believers are the carriers of that trust, each one a link in the chain that will not break until the end of time. Around the world, the Adhan still rises before dawn, calling hearts from sleep to stand before their Lord. In crowded cities and remote villages, in lands of peace and in lands of conflict, the same words are spoken, the same Quran is recited, the same hope is held, that the mercy of Allah will cover them on the day when all return to Him. The mission is alive, and its story is not over. The chain of prophecy ended with Muhammad, yet the mission did not. It became the responsibility of his ummah to carry the truth to every corner of the earth. This trust was not given to scholars alone nor to rulers alone, but to every believer who bore witness that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is His messenger. The same guidance given to Adam, the same call carried by Nuh, Ibrahim, Musa, and Isa now lived in the hands and hearts of ordinary men and women. For some, this meant speaking to neighbors with kindness, explaining the truth with patience. For others, it meant traveling far from their homes, enduring hardship to reach places where the message had never been heard. The early generations after the Prophet understood that Islam was not only a set of rituals, but a complete way of life. They taught that honesty in trade, mercy to the weak, justice in judgment, and sincerity in worship were all part of the mission. As the centuries passed, the world changed. Empires fell, new nations rose, languages and cultures shifted, but the Quran remained untouched, its words the same as when they were revealed in Makkah and Medina. The believers recited it in their prayers and in their gatherings, preserving its sound in the hearts of millions. The Sunnah of the Prophet remained a living example showing how to embody the words of Allah in daily life. There were times when the Ummah stood in strength, when justice was upheld and knowledge was sought with passion. In such times, the mission spread quickly, hearts opening to the truth through the character of those who lived it. There were also times of weakness when Muslims turned away from their responsibilities, chasing wealth or power, forgetting the unity and humility the Prophet had taught. In those times, the mission slowed, but it never stopped. Somewhere in the world, someone was always calling to Allah, always living as a witness. The trust was tested in wars and in peace, in wealth and in poverty. Some carried the message with their pens, writing books of knowledge that would be read for centuries. Others carried it with their voices, teaching the Quran to children who would grow to teach it again. Some carried it in their patience, enduring persecution without losing faith. Each was a part of the same mission begun before the first human took his first step on earth. In our own time, the mission faces new challenges. The world is connected in ways never seen before. A single voice can reach millions across oceans, yet so can voices that call to falsehood. Distractions fill the lives of many. People are busier but more restless, wealthier but less content. In this noise, the message can be drowned out if those who believe do not live it clearly and consistently. Carrying the mission now means more than speaking. It means showing Islam in action. It means keeping promises when breaking them would be easier. It means treating others with justice even if they are enemies. It means guarding the tongue from lies and the hands from harm. It means remembering Allah in private as much as in public. When believers live like this, the mission speaks for itself without the need for force or compulsion. History has shown that the truth is not kept alive only by the powerful. Sometimes it is preserved by those whose names are never recorded. A mother teaching her child the first chapter of the Quran, a merchant weighing his goods fairly, a traveler pausing his journey to pray on the roadside. These unseen acts are the threads that keep the fabric of the mission whole. The promise of Allah is that this message will remain until the last day. There will always be a group who hold firmly to it, unshaken by the blame of those who oppose them. Yet the responsibility on each believer is personal. No one can pass it entirely to another. On the day of judgment, each will stand alone to answer for how they carried their part of the mission. The chain of the prophets is complete, but the story is still being written. Every prayer, every word of truth, every act of mercy adds to its pages. The same words that once reached a shepherd on a hillside or a trader in a distant market now reach people in crowded cities and remote villages alike. The hearts that respond are the same as they have always been, hearts that recognize the truth as if remembering something they had known long ago. And so the mission continues. It is not bound by time or place. It began in the gardens of paradise when Adam was created. It flowed through the flood of Nuh, the fire of Ibrahim, the sea split for Musa, the miracles of Isa, and the revelation to Muhammad. Now it flows through the lives of all who believe, who act not for fame or reward in this world, but for the pleasure of the one who sent them guidance. It will continue until the final hour when the trumpet is blown, the sky is split, and all are gathered before their Lord. On that day, the mission will be complete, and the truth will be clear to every soul.